The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Daniel Mynard. I am the Automotive Director with Adtaxi, and thank you all very, very much for taking time out of your busy day to join us for what's really going to be a very, very exciting and dynamic discussion. Just some quick housekeeping for the folks who are on the line. If you would like to ask a question, we actually encourage you to do that. We want to make sure that this is useful for all folks who are taking the time to listen in on this. So please use the chat on the webinar conference window there, and at the end of the presentation, we would be happy to answer as many questions as we can get through. Folks, if you're not familiar with Adtaxi, I want to give just a really quick explanation of who we are, and then I'll quickly kind of explain what we're going to cover during today's presentation. So Adtaxi, if you haven't worked with us in the past, we are an advanced digital ad agency. We specialize in programmatic display, connected TV, video, and really leverage our strengths on the omni-channel management of campaigns. So we are efficiency nuts. We work with everybody from local small, medium-sized businesses, ranging all the way to factories and manufacturers in the automotive space, and everybody in between. So we are very, very pleased to be doing this for the group of attendees today, and we're very excited to have our partners from Google join us today. We actually have two folks joining us. That would be Darragh, if I didn't totally butcher that, as well as, yeah, go ahead. that was it. I was close enough on there. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thanks for that, Grace. I appreciate that. And then we also have Julio Gonzalez, who's going to take us through the bulk of the presentation today. Julio and I actually have worked together for, gosh, going on 10 years now, when we met both working in prior lives. And so I happen to know that Julio is going to deliver on today's presentation. For those of you who have not sat through a Mr. Gonzalez presentation, you're in for a real treat. So on top of that, Google has freshened up some content for us. Certainly things are changing dynamically by the day, especially depending on what state and what county you're in. So stay tuned, folks. We're going to dive right in and start talking a little bit about what we can do to manage our businesses more efficiently and to make sure that we're still being profitable in these ever-changing times. So with that, I'd like to hand the microphone over to our friends at Google to help to jump right into the presentation.
Hey, thank you, Dan, and thanks for updating me on how long we've known each other. You're right. I was just thinking about it. It's been a good 10 years. So I'm happy to join you and the team at Adtaxi, and I hope that everyone at home and in their offices, wherever they're at, watching this content today are doing well and staying healthy. So like I said, thank you for the opportunity. And we're going to go over some trends, some very specific trends on the dynamic component that Dan just mentioned that is pretty much fluid, right? The dynamic component of how people are searching for cars, how they're interacting with dealerships, and ultimately what are the products that you should be looking at to execute in this new communication age of whether they're coming to your store or delivering cars. Seems to be, like I mentioned, fluid. But before I get it kick-started, I wanted to make sure that some of the content we're going to go over here is very much based on what we're seeing across the country, based on the consumer behavior. And I just want to call out and be very present that some of the bullishness that we're seeing in the automotive industry may not apply to all the dealerships, right? Depending on what region you're in, state, city, even county. If you're open, not open, restrictions, phase one, phase two of this COVID environment that we're sort of living through. I want to make sure that you're very astute and present that some of the data is very nationalized, if you will, and it may not apply to you. So I want to be conscious of that. Next slide there. So one of the great things that I've seen over the past 3 months, and this is one of the many areas that I love about the automotive industry, is the passion that dealers have provided over the past 3 to 4 months on how they've been contributing to their local communities, right? And we've seen dealerships create food bank drives, thousands of them providing meals to school for children that the schools are not open. And there's tons of these examples across the country. So I want to thank everyone and all the dealers out there and their communities for truly making a difference and taking the time to do these things. It's very remarkable, and it's one of the main reasons why I feel that I'll never leave the auto industry and this really emotional component of that we're living through. So now let's get on to the good news, all right? So we have some data that is allowing us to see what's happening over 3-4 months. And what we're finding is that these trends that dealers need to address are very much explained on Google Trends. And what we're also seeing is that there's been a little bit of a shock, a step change, and a speed up. And the shock is obviously, we went into a pandemic. We never really engaged with the pandemic over the past 100 years. And a lot of us was shocked. But slowly, as we begin to assimilate the news, the environment we're in, we started realizing that the consumer was starting to feel comfortable and understanding that the world has changed and they needed to adapt to it. And now we're seeing the speed up over the last, I would say, month or so, month and a half, and where that speed up is ramping up and they feel very comfortable and engaging with dealership, whether it's at home or going to the store, wherever that service is available. So what is the shock? We could go to the next slide. So the shock, like I mentioned, is the behavior in where, hey, I'm not going to be able to sustain the situation, right? And they very much focus on, hey, can I even afford the current car that I have? And what would it mean for me to defer payments? That's the shock. Do I need a car? And can I afford it? What is the way to get around this car? Because that's a bill and I need to figure out other things. That's a very drastic change. And you can see the spike in how they were utilizing Google to get this information, right? Very, very shocking, very concerning if you were to look at this data. But we're starting to see that trend fall off. And if we move over to the next slide, we're seeing that the step change is, well, March 15th through the 11th, the increases on vehicle financing increased 34% month over month, while vehicle leasing declined. And very much what is driving this behavior is that many of the OEMs went out to market with 0% finance. And that allowed folks to feel comfortable with buying a car if they could afford it, obviously, and then moving into, well, I don't need to lease a car. I need to possibly own a car because there's really good deals out there. So good deals always going to be something that we're going to strive for, and we always talk about. But you can see the huge difference here on the slide between vehicle financing and the steep decline in vehicle leasing. Next slide. So when we focus on the speed up, and this is the important part, and this is the bullishness and the good news that I have today, is that what we're seeing is a drastic increase in accelerating and feeling comfortable to buying a car. And at the same time, leasing is also coming back up because people are understanding that they could afford the car and the consumers are seeing it. But what they're really now engaging with this as of May is that we're seeing a 2x more searches on buying a car online. Now, I want to be clear here. It's not that we want to create a e-commerce experience, but what we don't want to do is, are we communicating to the consumer that you're able to do most of it from the comfort of your own home and we could deliver the car to you? So don't want to talk about e-commerce, but the digital retailing tools that we need to bring to market need to accelerate in this, because obviously these folks are feeling very comfortable and engaging with you and still buying a car. And obviously they want to do it from the comfort of their own home. Next slide. So what is the speed up? And this is where I want to focus for the next 10 minutes, is we have 4 accelerated auto trends that we need to optimize towards. And what are those? So very simple. People are finding comfort in car ownership, which is really good, great news. Obviously, this is never going to go away. They're looking to find a good deal. That is not a surprise there, but obviously more now than ever. People want the dealer experience closer to their home. And what they mean by that, or might mean by that, is how are we utilizing the tools online to make them feel that they could pretty much buy the vehicle from their comfort of their own couch, whether it's walk-arounds, the inside of the car, test drives, financing tools, all these different things that dealers are promptly engaging. I would even add that text is now a very prominent way of conversion that dealers would care about. Obviously, the phone calls are very much marrying. And then the last piece is people want to buy online and at home delivery, right? So it's a pivot of many of the things we've been saying over the past few years, is how do we get to be more of online behavior with the consumer and engagement? And we're seeing that with COVID now being accelerated over the last 3-4 months. So let's discuss a little bit of the speed up here, and I get a little bit more into the details. So we ran a survey towards the end of March and beginning of April, and where we conducted a survey, and it was basically very much around questions and the behavior that the consumer was experiencing with buying a car. And what we found out is that there is tons of opportunity, and the main reason for it is, as we begin to work from home, and this conversation is going to continue to snowball from here, we're finding that a lot of folks in cities and close to cities are having the opportunity to move more to suburbs, and they're also trying to avoid public transportation. That's really good news for somebody that sells cars. And the great thing about it is that it's opened a whole new world. About 3 million people across the country, which is about 20% of the end market, are folks that don't own a car today. Okay, we've been talking about the disruptions of Uber and electric cars and all these different things that have been chipping away at the automotive industry. And now COVID has turned that upside down and has allowed the end market shopper for the automotive industry to be actually a wider pool of these folks, and very much concentrated in cities and suburbs around those cities, as folks feel that they need to avoid public transportation. And obviously working from home environment and not going into the office then creates a different dynamic there. Number two, like I mentioned, people expect to find a deal, right? So we have a great opportunity, and now how do we provide that? So in this survey, what we found out is that 50% of the survey are staying the course. So that's a huge amount of folks in this moments of disruption that they're looking to still buy a vehicle. And obviously, those folks are looking to buy a vehicle if the interest financing and incentive deals are there, and we know they're there. So when we communicate through marketing, it's very much going back to basics and trying to portray a good brand from the dealership, but at the same time, providing all the incentives that drive certain car segments or deals at the dealership to get these folks, influence them, and get them in the store or deliver the vehicle at home. Next slide. There we go. Sorry, it was a little delayed there. No, sorry, it was a little delayed. So now that I got it back on here. So the third trend is people want the dealer experience to be closer to home. And at Google, we've been tracking the evolution of the auto shopper now for about a decade. We've been doing these path to purchases that we release every year. And we see a new emergence in a digital behavior in the shopping process, which we've been calling out now for about 2 to 3 years, but is now really accelerated. And that's the consumption of video. And for us, video means YouTube, right? YouTube is the second largest search engine in the world. And that's a very broad statement, but what it means is now folks are really understanding that YouTube not only is a do-it-yourself type of educational component to their lives, but now that they're sitting on their couch at home, they've been consuming these walk-arounds, these sort of test drives at home at a decent pace. You can see the growth here from 2018 through 2020, but since COVID, the drastic increase now of 39% year over year for automotive exclusive content on YouTube, okay? And that is something startling. So number one, if you don't have a video strategy, you could say you're not having a digital marketing strategy or a consumer strategy for that matter, I would say. The last piece is we just, between this study, Pixability just did a study, and when it comes to any type of video in automotive, for all of OEMs, YouTube is the place to go. And that's something that you should be considering from a culture perspective, a change in how dealers handle their business, because it's not about only advertising on YouTube, it's about sending content when they provided a lead. It's about trying to communicate with them over video content. Trying to do all those things, you have to lead with video first. It is no longer a blog world, it's a video blog world, right? And creating that culture within the dealership, your sales teams and everything needs to be a priority as we discuss what that means. Next slide. And these are 3 videos that I have here. These are actual videos from dealers through COVID, very much focused on walkarounds, how they're adjusting their service models, their business of operations, their service, how they're cleaning their cars. All these different things are very top of mind for the consumer, can only be explained through snippets of video. It can't be just a banner on your website that you are a COVID ready business. And there has to be someone at the dealership communicating sort of these conversations, whether it's a branding, service, walkarounds, vehicle tours, whatever that may be, you're going to have to tackle with it on a video strategy. And 4, and I want to spend a little bit of time in here, is what we see people buying in home delivery. And I think this is a big pivot for many dealerships, and it's one that cannot be undone. I bought a car, just anecdotally, I bought a car here in Silicon Valley, believe it or not, about 6 months ago. And I'm not going to say the name of the dealership, but I went to the dealership with my wife, engaged with them, did everything to understand the vehicle. And I went home, discussed it with my wife. And about a week later, I contacted the sales rep. We discussed, we came to a plan. And when I said, okay, I'm in my office, can you send me the paperwork? And I'll fill it all up here and then pick up the car. He said he wasn't able to do that. And that was 6 months ago. Today, we all need to do that. We all need to be able to send paperwork, be able to engage with the consumer online. The day that COVID is controlled and we move away from this pandemic, the consumer is going to continue to expect this process to be an online process, right? And it's not a shopping cart process. I understand there's a digital retailing process, but we can no longer go back to the old behaviors, and we need to continue to our culture, like I mentioned, video, even our audience targeting to be all online. Next slide. And lastly here, when we speak about this, and this I took from the earnings call in Q1 that Asbury had, they spoke that 15% of their used car sales in March and April were completely made online. 15%. That is a huge, pivot from what the old model used to be. And I guess what I'm saying is, if you're competing with an Asbury, if you're competing with the Sonic, if you're one of these dealerships that you're seeing someone else do something more advantage, you are now competing and being compared to that. Before we used to say, look at the Amazon experience. That's what you're going to be compared to. But today you're now having dealers going in this direction, and that's the direction we all need to move into it. And then how do we implement good online sales systems? It's going to be super important. That's a huge pivot also from not only digital marketing, online research to offline buying in the brick and mortar. And for years at Google, we've been saying, how do we get more store visits? We are now reverting a little bit of that model, and we're focusing on phone calls, text message, email messages, and going back to those old conversions, because folks are not just going to be walking into the dealerships as they used to. They're going to be more online, like I mentioned before. All right, so last and not least here is the response, right? So how do we focus on these 4 responses? And I want to share with you 4 areas here that you need to focus on. And just to finish off on my portion here is explore alternative customer service models, right? I think we talked about that. You also need to maintain a line of customer communication through video. Advertising is a big component of that, but how you explain the vehicle, how do you display that vehicle has to be online. And the most important piece is capture existing consumer demand with proper audience targeting, right? And that's where something like Adtaxi does a really good job of, is that we now have a pool of people that didn't show a certain amount of behavior that were in market, now in market based on these trends of city movement, working from home environment that I spoke about earlier. And then lastly, we need to revert back to the old value conversions, which are more phone calls, emails as conversions, micro actions on websites, and sort of pivot away from store visits, because obviously we're having that brick and mortar component to it. So these are my 4 recommendations, and I think Darragh right after me now is going to talk a little bit more and sort of drive a more specific action item from a Google lens on how to tackle video and audience targeting.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Julio. Really interesting, actually, to just see, I guess, the big 4 trends. And I'd encourage the listeners as well to think about those trends as we go through the second portion of the webinar today, and specifically to talk about the types of strategies that we can deploy in really a full funnel strategy, and how video, like you said, video is essential to your strategy. And if you're not kind of doing video right now, you're missing a big opportunity. And I see video as well as like having a digital salesman. It's there 24/7. It's out there doing the work for you and pre-qualifying your leads. And like you said, it can go a lot further than just a simple text ad or a banner ad, and it can tell a big story for you. Something I picked up on as well, actually, is the big need around personal transport. It's a very valid and top of mind process at the moment. I myself actually bought a car. I've been in the US now for 3 years. I took COVID essentially for me to decide to buy a car, because again, my wife and I felt that relying on public transport, we knew we probably wouldn't be flying a lot this year. We needed something that was personal to us. It's funny you brought it up with the paperwork piece as well. Even you said 6 months ago, I bought my car May 18th. And they weren't able to process their paperwork. Had to come to the dealership as well, which was a challenge in itself, because the dealership was about 30 miles away and I don't have a car. So I can't really stress that enough. People are looking for distance. If they have to come to the dealership, they want to make it once, right? But I would really encourage everybody to even separate to Google Ads, but in general, just try and digitize as much of the paperwork, the DMV processes, signing the lease, the forms, whatever it might be, and that delivery piece as well. And once you offer it, it's very hard to come back from that as well. But there's big opportunity out there right now. There is a slow recovery happening. And I think the outbreak has kind of changed significantly how we think about and shop for cars, and it will going forward. Like you said, there's new changes that have happened, and these behaviors, a lot of them are going to be imprinted on us going forward. Sadly, I think the romantic notion of the old-fashioned handshake deal, it's dead for the minute anyway. But the prevalence of smaller showrooms, tactical, more localized marketing, pre-approved financing, online sales, insurance transactions, is really likely to grow. You touched on with Asprey their online portion of sales. I mean, online car sales in 2019 made up about 10 to 15% of the total in the US vehicle market. And if you listen to the experts, definitely not us two anyway, maybe you a bit more than me, Julio, but I think that, I think that for a lot of people, I think the average car price in the US is new car 35,000, used car maybe 21,000. It's a big purchase, right? It's a decision. You got to check with your significant other. You got to make sure that it's right for everybody. Most people, they want to come to a dealership in some capacity. They would prefer that. We're not saying you need to go and move your everything online right now, but you can pre-qualify a lot of that by thinking about a full funnel strategy, deploying search, deploying display, and deploying video, and really across your other marketing channels as well.
Yeah,
so,
and there are such to interrupt you, but
yeah, sure.
This industry is incredibly resilient, and it's been moving in that direction, but it's been moving slowly. Obviously, this COVID has come in and completely put everybody on their toes, and this movement is moving in that direction. So you're absolutely right. And when I call those 4 things, they're nothing or different than we've been speaking of and everybody's been thinking of for the past few years. But what I love about this is that the dealership now is in front and center of the opportunity. And before, everybody was talking about all these different disruptions. And now the dealer is front and center of the opportunity, which is comforting to see that these communities and principals and friends actually have the opportunity to tackle it and sort of rise again. So I expect in the next 2 years a pretty drastic uprise in consumer engagement with automotive dealerships. And it's crazy. A pandemic needed to put us in that term, but here we are.
So I'm a simple man, gentlemen. I like to just kind of put it out there, just how it is. So for the folks that are kind of maybe half paying attention at this point, here's a recap. Nothing has changed. We still need to offer sales processes to match the expectations and preferences of our customers, just like before. Right now, there's a little bit more of an onus to to light a fire under our own butts, but that's been the feedback we've given to a lot of our clients who initially were in kind of that panic mode. So I love what you guys are saying. I think we're all on the same page there.
Yeah. And it's interesting when we talk about the rapid change that COVID has brought on. If you think about, I guess, auto as a whole, right, and kind of this slide, you can see it's very front loaded to the last couple of years, but it's been 100 years of relative immobility. I would say there's been small incremental improvements, mostly regulation driven. At the end of the day, with the exception of that large Mercedes that I've only seen since I've come to America that has 6 wheels. Most vehicles have 4 wheels, right? Forward facing seating machines, right? Operated by one driver. You could argue Tesla again will drive a little bit for you. But really there's been some deep change really in behavior and digitization of the industry that's really transformed under our eyes. And I think here we are now in 2020, in the middle of 2020, and consumers, they have more options than ever before. And with more options, I think comes curiosity and impatience. And Julio, you talked about the rise in these sudden queries and really about trying to capture that demand. And I think working with Google, across our platforms, dealers can be comfortable and strategically placed to try and capitalize on that demand at the moment. So, for those that don't know, Google has a lot to offer in the customer journey. Okay, we've got 7 properties, over 1 billion users monthly. For a lot of the local dealers, I know we don't want to go after the 1 billion users, but those users and your customers as well are very much ingrained in the journey across a lot of our products. Okay, Google Maps, Gmail, Google Search, YouTube, Android, Chrome. There's a lot there. And as you said, Julio, you talked about the sudden changes in behavior, and really we're seeing this online now, and customers are particularly reacting a lot across Google platforms. And really what I want to highlight today is that path to purchase and that journey is being reshaped and fragmented a little bit more than usual. So, we know it can be overwhelming and at times confusing thinking about how to find your customers, I guess, at every step of the journey. But Google and Adtaxi, we're here to help and navigate you guys towards the customers that you ultimately want. So, I want to talk about, a full funnel strategy approach to help drive your Google Ads performance forward. Consumers, they'll start searching in google.com. We said they're curious, they're impatient, they're capitalizing on demand. They're looking for new car, used cars, dealers near me. Julio mentioned around the rapid rise in financing and those sort of queries as well. People are looking for delivery same day, all that sort of stuff. And really we need to try and understand and leverage Google and our automation, our algorithms to try and decipher when we want to be a part of that journey and when we need to pull back. And again, kind of going back to what Julio said, it's a good thing that people are curious and impatient, because we know that COVID has shifted the mindset of these auto shoppers. They use and like digital as physical alternatives to visiting the dealerships. They want to engage with vehicles that they would on a lot. They want to experience that vehicle as well. If they can't, test drive it initially, what they want to do is understand through online review videos, VR test drives, things like that, walk-arounds, how the look and feel of the car, and review videos as well. Creating that organic content for your site. That's ranked as number 2, what we see in our internal data as an alternative to a dealership visit as well. And it's a really growing trend. So I would definitely encourage dealers, keep producing your content and that homegrown content as well, and give them the look and feel of that digital showroom essentially. And there's a lot happening on Google at a lot of the time, and every search on Google is quite unique, right? Because essentially it's powered by the context of the moment, the language they query, the browser, whether they're on a remarketing list, their purchase history, the blogs that they're reading. And there's a lot of signals out there. And really what I want the next 2 or 3 slides is just to highlight that the platform that Google has built on, and that automated piece is doing a lot of the heavy lifting for you. And it's really a centralized part of a full funnel strategy. If we were to try and, I guess, optimize every single marketing campaign around these signals, it would be very time consuming and very inefficient, especially dealers, GMs, you're busy people at the end of the day. It's really important that, strategizing with a solid base of power essentially will help you, be more efficient with your time and help you to fine tune your Google Ads strategy. And through machine learning and automation, Google can help you gather and action a lot of these rich insights around your consumer base and really scale that performance when it matters. So really what I wanted to get across, is that Google Ads marketing, that full funnel approach is powered by automation. And that's really what will help you bring that customer from that initial point of research right through to purchasing that car from you. And if we think about the funnel itself, so machine learning helps you power your marketing and help you make those real-time decisions to make your full funnel strategy so much more efficient and more powerful. Search is our base platform, but we'll see how the journey from research to driving away in that new vehicle, it takes time. Traditionally, people would have, they've visit multiple dealers, they'll take multiple test drives, they'll come back online, they'll research. As Julio said, that shift has changed right now. And what they're doing is they're spending more time online at different points of the funnel. So they're looking to be influenced by a brand. They may have an idea what they want, but I should tell you some stats in a while. We'll talk to the contrary. And really, Google offers you the ability to start from awareness, let them know who you are, to influence that consideration mindset as well. Drive action as we come further down the funnel when we're looking to make that purchase, have that engagement with a potential customer, and ultimately, hopefully grow that loyalty. So when we get that customer, they become sticky, we get them back in for services. If they're, financing, repurchasing, that they're going to come back to that dealership again in 3 years' time. So, showing up at the right moment is important. And as I said, many consumers, they're not that brand committed actually when they come online. 51% of smartphone users have discovered a new brand or product when conducting research on smartphones. I know that Google in particular, Adtaxi across the auto space for the last couple of years, I've seen mobile has had unparalleled growth and has really become that immersive assistant for users. 1 in 3 smartphone users have purchased from a company or brand other than the one they intended to, because the information they provided in the moment was more relevant to them. Julio mentioned that a banner ad or a search ad is great. It's really important to think about how those ads can influence them throughout that journey as well. So marketing across the whole customer journey means retaining more people at every stage of the funnel. It'll help you intelligently target your audience, drive a higher proportion of the right audience you want to your site, and then ultimately try and get those people to purchase from you as well. And companies who manage their customer journeys outperform those that don't. Imagine a 54% greater return on your marketing investment. Automation and thinking about the journey, Julio mentioned as well, know your audience. These are, by leveraging the right Google tools and efficiencies, we're able to drive those marketing efficiencies for you that will ultimately give you a greater bottom line. And Google's properties, I touched on them, we have 7 of them. There's a lot to play, but those properties play an important role in influencing that consumer journey. Look at the top 8 that we're seeing, websites that contribute to somebody purchasing a car. They visit an auto aggregator website, maybe on through Google Display. They've gone back to search. They're looking at branded websites, multi-category aggregators. They've gone on to auto community dealer websites. We'll see in later slides as well how big a part that video is playing. Julio touched on it again, that that rapid rise in video watch times and traffic that's coming onto YouTube as well, and the engagement that we're seeing as well. So really, it's important to not have an isolated, siloed strategy that we're just appearing on one platform or not the other, because your user and that journey to the lot or to the purchase is taking on multiple platforms. So, if we look through the customer journey, not to get too much into the weeds, but Google have, solutions for you based on your objectives. Everybody wants to live on the bottom of the funnel. I know, for we're driving intent and we're driving action. If you think about a funnel, it has to be fueled from the top, right? So we have to thinking about upper funnel tactics as well, think about reach and consideration tactics. But we've got a lot of options on the table for dealers. Detailed demographics. If we want to target, if a family are looking for, a 6 or an 8-seater car, they don't want maybe a luxury Mercedes. They don't want a 2-seater Roadster or something like that. We need to understand the context of the products that we're selling and have the right targeting behind it. What are they interested in? What are they, affinity, consumer patterns? Do we know that they're interested in auto? Do we know that that their searches online are about maybe families? Maybe they're looking for car insurance. Maybe they're searching for, Julio mentioned it as well, the shift, the migration, geographically. People are moving out of these major metropolises right now, seeking, to move to the suburbs, maybe move, from working from home, maybe move somewhere that they've always wanted to live, and they've decided that now is the right time to do it. Maybe in the cities they didn't need that personal mode of transport, but now all of a sudden that they do. So really tapping in again, further down the funnel, life events in market, custom intent and remarketing, and we'll talk about some of these later on. A really important area as well is your first person data, thinking about emails, addresses, phone numbers, and how we can leverage them across our platform as well. Really, I think, the central theme of today is thinking about that full funnel strategy and how YouTube can be really integrated into that. YouTube for me is a really powerful platform that's growing in confidence and growing in scale, and especially now over the last couple of months in particular, we're seeing that auto intenders really are valuing the digital experience that they're getting from video. So, I just put some quick stats together that from a recent study. 107 billion lifetime views of US auto content on YouTube, 350K of US-based channels that are creating their own new to YouTube organic content, 22% year-on-year growth in annual viewership from 2019, and 93% favorability in US auto content on YouTube. They're really powerful stats that can really tell you how much of a online community and a go-to resource YouTube is for a lot of people who are interested in automotive in general, or also just in market for new cars, and they're doing that research. So I said earlier on that video can be an additional salesperson or a team that's always there. Getting in front of the right people at the right time in the right context is super important, and YouTube is that platform to help you with that. And why is video becoming so prevalent? Well, I'm sure everybody uses, maybe not YouTube, but they'll use some video platform in their day-to-day that consume videos. Globally, actually 82% of all consumer traffic is going to be on video by next year. So if you think about your target demos, that 18 to 54 plus, that these people are prime users, especially in the lower demographics as well by age. Prime users of video. Most people in the US have 3+ connected devices, and they're spending, between the ages of, I think it's 19 and 43, they're spending about an hour a day consuming video content. That's a lot of opportunity for you to influence people with your brand. And really what we're seeing as well is there's been a real shift from, TV viewership. We're not here to say by any means that TV is not the right medium to connect with your channel or to connect with your audience. What we're saying is that, TV and YouTube can work quite effectively together. We did a recent study actually of adults 18 to 54 who drive about over 1,000 miles per year to understand their media consumption across both TV and digital and what opportunity to reach them look like, right? If we could add video into that media mix that they're consuming. And looking at like 2019 in particular, we saw actually about 5.5 million people paying TV subscribers actually cut out their cable. And we saw about, that was a big increase on the 3.2 million people that cut in 2018. But coming back to our study, 40 out of every 100 people simply watch little or no traditional TV. Q4 19 paying TV subs, 80 million, right? So one of the lowest that they've seen since 2000. And the last hit show on broadcast and cable television that broke any of the bigger awards was This Is Us, actually 4 years ago. So really what I'm trying to highlight here is that we're thinking about our users. If we have a TV plan, great. We need to try and extend that as well. And video is a really viable option for you. And again, videos can power your search campaigns as well. We're performance advertisers at the end of the day, and search is important. What we're seeing on search, 8% higher conversion volume, 3% higher search conversion rates, and lower CPA when you bring video into the mix. And YouTube is that #1 destination for auto shoppers as well. So we're seeing about 800 million monthly automotive video views relative to the OEM websites and endemics. Again, large following on YouTube, and that, that ease with which people can come onto the platform, look at those walkthroughs, look at those 360 virtual videos, look at those digital showrooms, is really powering the growth of the platform. And interesting enough, Julio mentioned earlier on, Google search is Google is the world's largest search platform. YouTube is actually the second, and from an automotive space, actually auto search volume on YouTube is now matching Google search in that category. You can see here VW Golf walkarounds as well. Actually, this was part of my journey. Actually, I bought a VW Golf, as I said, back in May. The walkaround, I had to go and look. I wanted to understand the car before I bought it, and not be trying to really not have to go to the dealership for multiple visits, right? Given everything that's happening as well. And, our research shows us as well. I think one of the slides hasn't populated there correctly, but our research shows us that 20% of in-market purchasers are watching commercial content when they're looking, and actually when they have the right ads ahead of them, and actually 62% are seeking out that content as well. So what the slide that hasn't correctly loaded here is just an OEM commercial itself. But what people are also really interested in, I said earlier on, is that engaged content as well, that's kind of organic and customized to them. The 2020 Subaru Forester, the walk around here, I want to get the look and feel of the car that I'm not going to get from the lot at the moment. And building on that, video assists throughout that shopping experience as well. Awareness, consideration, action. Today we're going to focus on action. And we, 60%, again, of videos have contributed to people visiting a dealership or their website after watching a video. So video is that really powerful tool that can help right the way through that consideration phase. And again, the study, we've put out a lot of pulse studies over the last couple of months as well, and late, last year as well. We really wanted to understand how video is playing a part in the overall buying cycle. So, we surveyed a lot of respondents. They told us that, research shows 2 in 3 auto purchasers will watch a video about a vehicle that they are considering while in market. 88% of purchasers who used online video said that they were 100% certain before visiting the dealership which car they were actually going to purchase as a result of watching content on YouTube as well. So some really powerful stats there that can add to the credibility of why video should be part of your mix. And listen, they're great stats. I can hear you saying, Darragh, listen, they're great stats. How do I translate that to my dealership? So we need to understand your marketing goals. We want to sell cars. So let's focus predominantly on action. YouTube, again, offers you a lot of options across the board, depending if you're looking for reach, awareness, website traffic, and ultimately trying to get people as close to that point of purchase with what we can do right now. We've got formats that offer usability across the board. TrueView for reach, bumper ads, TrueView in-stream, TrueView for action. Very high level here. TrueView for reach, exactly what it says in the tin. It's designed at scale. It's It's bought on an impression basis, and the idea is to reach as many people as possible with the targeting that we use. Bumper ads, I call this snackable content. For anyone who uses YouTube, you may see these little unskippable 6-second ads that will complement a strategy there. Usually you've already been on their customer's website already before, and you're seeing these 6-second ads. TrueView in stream is the standard buying that you see. That 5-second skip button will appear afterwards, and TrueView for action, which is our newest format, which is really to encourage people to engage. You'll see there's a prominent buy now button here as well, and there's some exciting betas actually off the back of this that when partnering with Adtaxi you'll get access to, that I'm going to share pretty quickly based on time. So looking at the audiences to reach your goal, right? We've seen the format, that's great. We now need to try and think about who we're going to target for our marketing objective. We have, starting at the top, if you think about this as the funnel as well, demographics, affinity segments, who are interested, so audio enthusiasts or public transport users, people who we know based on their online behavior that they have an affinity or a passion point, or there's something, this content they engage with quite a lot. But right down the bottom here is the world that as dealers we should aim to live in. Remarketing, customer match, customer intent, remarketing, targeting users who have been to our website before, customer match, leveraging our CRM data, customer intent, really new and powerful. So actually taking a lot of the powerful search behavior that we're seeing. Julio talked about a massive rise in a lot of these different search queries, taking those search queries and trying to put content in front of users who have actually searched them as well. As I said, action is where we want to go to. And again, 55% of people who search for a product, they'll start at Google, they'll learn more. 40% of users as well have told us that they use YouTube that directly influenced them towards purchasing a product or a service. And specifically, when we think about the action format and how it's going to power your search campaigns, really powerful stats that we're seeing versus standard YouTube buys. 200% higher click-through rate, that's engagement on your ads, 40% lower CPA. What it's doing on search is really the big one for me. It's driving more conversions, it's improving the conversion rate, and it's driving lower CPAs as well. And how is that possible? It's because YouTube is, you can supply the performance data that you need because it's linked into all of the 7 properties that we run. We can take in your search data, we can take in your maps data, and we can start to make sure that with the algorithms and the automation piece that we're getting in front of those right users at the right time. And as I said, when we want to live down the bottom of the funnel, we recommend starting your action campaigns, with remarketing, with customer match, and with customer intent. I can't really say how well this product in particular performs within the auto segment, especially with some of the modifications that we've made with some of our newer products that are coming to market. Customer intent is really our flagship product for this as well. And as I said, so 86% of people will turn to Google for new ideas. They'll start in Google, and what we can do is actually re-engage with them on video then. True, thinking about your branded terms, any non-brand terms, any OEM, terms, anything like that. And what it'll do is build out an audience profile for you, and we'll put the ads in front of that person to make it really relevant for them. So as they're moving through that purchase funnel, we know that the engagement with the ad is going to be really, really high. Let me skip this one. Let me go to this. So thinking about that format as well. So with the action format, we can take multiple actions here. So if we want them to search now, buy now, we have a lead generation option as well, which has been picked up quite a lot in the automotive space. We actually put a customized form in the ad unit and actually collect their data from them, as opposed to having to leave the video and come to your website. If you have, app installs as well, and when in the post-COVID world, when we're getting the dealerships back, we can actually leverage these campaign formats to drive people physically to your stores as well. Since we're all friends, Google, we partner with Adtaxi quite closely. I wanted to just give you guys 2 sneak peeks of some betas that, when you partner with Adtaxi, you will get access to. So I touched on the lead forms as well. So really what they're doing is going to drive leads through in a very privacy safe way. Form fill options, name, email, phone number. We have a couple of other options as well that have come out. And you have an option as well that when you are logged into Google across the board, that the data can be pre-filled as well, because you've shared this, they've shared this data with Google already. Really efficient way of getting in front of people. So imagine, you know, you've got your creative, we're putting out an ad, we know we're targeting people who've either been to our website, who have their email addresses potentially, or we know that they have been searching for one of our, you know, brands or our cars in the last couple of, you know, 24, 48 hours. We can put this ad unit in front of them that has this really nice lead form as well. And secondly, you know, what's been great actually is site links as well, a really powerful tool. They're coming on to, this is the only video unit that you can use these guys with as well. So taking the best and brightest of what you have in your search campaigns and using these on the ad unit as well for action. Why it's so successful? Because it's powered by our smart bidding algorithm. So the action format on YouTube is the only format that it leverages smart bidding. So you can set the system to have a CPA or a conversion strategy, and the system will go to market and try and find the right targets for you based on the target CPA or the conversion goal that you'll set for the campaign as well. And I haven't touched on it specifically, but creative. Google is here to help as well. We have a number of other new product betas that have launched, self-service, that again, partnering with Adtaxi or agencies will give you access to. And we also have a premium creative services team that link with Adtaxi as well, shortening videos, optimizing existing videos for mobile, changing any content you have in any long form videos, or using image to video as well. If you have any good social assets that you're currently leveraging, we have our team is also really in tune with actually connecting those together and putting a story behind them and leveraging them back. And these are, when you make an investment with Google Ads, the video creation comes as part of the package as well, and then you'll keep an eye on that creative and you can use it across any channel that you want. So if you want to take anything, I think from what I've listened to Julio and the team today, and even just from my own ramblings, you know, speed up and respond. You know, change is happening now. People are finding that comfort in car ownership, that personal space. It includes their homes, and now it includes automobiles. If they don't have one, they're in the market for one. But when they are in the market, they want deals and they want distance. So, you know, we touched on it, and it's not Google speak specifically, but think about how you can digitize as much of that process as possible and respond to what we're seeing in the market. So, you know, automakers have quickly shifted from online only transactions to meeting consumer preferences across that digital journey. Really important that we go to market quickly with that as well. And Julio mentioned it's audience first, right? So auto shoppers, I should say, they consider at home and digital experiences as really positive alternatives for visiting a dealer. Leverage your search and video to engage with those users across that journey. And finally, video. For me, it's that you know, another, you know, think of video as another member of your sales team that is very cost efficient and is running 24/7 for you to pre-qualify those leads. It's important to understand your goal and make those, you know, understand the right solution to use. We've seen from the statistics that buyers, they value YouTube in the decision process. So I'm going to wrap it up there. We've got about 6 minutes left. But I hope I've given you a very brief but top line overview of why having a connected strategy, what powers that strategy, and predominantly how video, YouTube, and the action formats can really help drive your business forward, as you know, in H2 2020 and beyond into 2021. And that's it from me.
Thank you very much, Darragh, and Julio as well. Darragh, if you have the updated slide, I added a little placeholder in 67 there, if that's available. If not, no big deal. So once again, thank you very, very much to our partners at Google. That was really, really informative, and I certainly took a page full of action items that I can't wait to share with some of our clients and prospects as well. I do want to just remind everybody that if you signed up for this event, that we will be sending a recording of the webinar away. We'll be emailing a link to the recording. Folks, hopefully you took away some nuggets that you can implement into your strategy tomorrow, whether you work with us or not. Certainly, we'd love to work with you know, everybody on this call. But there are a couple of things that you really, really need to consider, regardless of who your partner is or if you're doing it yourself. And, really the big takeaway here is, again, continue to make sure that you're setting your business up and allowing your customers to do business with you the way that they're comfortable with, not the way that we're used to, and not the way that the dealer around the corner is going to do. These are the dealerships that we're seeing are thriving right now. And one of my favorite quotes that I usually include is one from Warren Buffett, where many of you may have heard it, and if you haven't, it goes something like this: be fearful when others are greedy, and be greedy when others are fearful. Folks, we've come across many dealerships who have actually significantly increased their market share over the last 4 months. The reason for that is that they leaned into this headwind, and obviously, as Julio mentioned at the top of the call, a lot of it had to do with just folks who were able to navigate local laws and restrictions and things like that. But generally speaking, there are still dealerships around the country. I can think of one that I just had a conversation with a few days ago, a Toyota dealership in Southern California in South Orange County, who said exactly that to me. He explained that a lot of his competitors, a lot of his even a handful of the folks in his same make were doing everything they could to offload their inventory, and many of them completely turned off all of their advertising, where a subset of dealers took a very different approach and a much more aggressive approach. And again, the spoils went to the winners, because to Darragh's point and Julio's points, folks are still needing transportation, maybe more so now than ever, as public transportation is really slowing down, and folks are fearful for those types of reasons. Folks are still needing to trade in their off-lease vehicles. Folks are still needing to get out of their vehicle that's starting to give them problems. So that's one thing I'm really eager to continue the discussions with, that we've had with many dealers who've joined this call, and hopefully again we took some very specific action items away. Let me just make sure I'm going through my notes here to make sure I didn't forget anything top level. I'll also remind folks that if you have questions, and I know we're coming up at the hour here, so I may not have time to get to them, type them in now, and if I can't get to them during this call, I can certainly follow up with you specifically. If anyone is interested in having a deeper discussion about what some of the topics we discussed here can do for your dealership, and how we can implement them and customize them, really in the name of, again, expanding your market share and keeping the profitability coming into the store, I'd love to invite you to reach out to either myself or any one of your local Adtaxi associates there. We have feet on the street essentially at every major metro, including Portland, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Denver, Boston, New York, Texas, Ohio, Philly, and a handful of others. So folks, I'm really excited to leverage this partnership for the clients that we serve by offering some of the really neat beta programs as well that Google is gracious enough to offer us as a premier partner with them. So my opinion has always been that we look for the blue oceans, and we try to maximize them before the rest of the field catches up and finds out where the Glengarry leads are, so to speak. So I certainly hope that some of you take us up on this very generous offer. We are all about trying to make sure that we are staying ahead of the curve in terms of where our customers are going to want to engage with us, not just today, but tomorrow and around the bend as well. So with that, I think I may have hogged the last remaining few minutes of our call. So we want to be respectful of everybody's time and on time. Again, thank you everybody for joining. Thank you very much for our esteemed guest speakers, Julio and Darragh from Google. And I hope everybody has a fantastic day. Thank you, everybody.